How are you doing? Welcome to live stream number 152. Today we are going to talk about sketching. I kind of follow up on yesterday's live stream where we talked about these 80-20 rails. And what I showed yesterday was you can use McMaster inside of Fusion 360 to pull a lot of this stuff in. But I know that you guys are going to find some kind of a rail that looks different. So today we're going to talk about how to sketch that. It is Tuesday today. It is May 1st, 2018. Wow, spring is in the air. My name is Lars Christensen, and thank you so much for taking the time to join today's live stream. Like I said, we're going to talk about sketching. Now, I hope you will agree with me. You let me know. Thumbs up or thumbs down. But sketching is it's one of these fundamentals that you should have down, right? It's kind of like what every model needs some kind of a sketch in there. So let's jump into it and let's sketch something up. So if I go in here to Fusion, I don't have anything on the screen here, but many times what would happen, I think I can say somewhat without putting myself too much on the line, is that you pull up some, you need some special of these 80-20s. Now today I just pulled up something fairly simple, but this is how I normally used to get, a lot of parts, like a PDF style picture. You rather print it out as a 2D print or something like that. So what I thought today was, why don't we draw this up in the sketching environment, and I'll show you how I would kind of go about this with a couple of, I think, tips and tricks in there. If you are a super user, you might not find anything spectacular today. But if you're fairly, even if you're, I think, pretty good, then you still probably could find a couple of things. At least, you let me know in the comments, but at least, you can just say to yourself, yes, I know how to do it. So let me close this picture down here. Now, in the past, in my previous life, I would have printed this out on a piece of paper and kind of like had it laying next to me. But what I actually prefer today is to bring it right inside of Fusion and kind of use it as a reference. And I would also do that if it was something more, this was just like one view, but if you had like multiple views in a 2D drawing, I think I still like to bring it in into Fusion. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go up to this insert button, and there is a insert canvas and insert decal. Now insert decal is more like a sticker on your 3D model, where canvas is a 2D picture for you to draw something up on it. So let me click on this. And when you get this dialog box, a lot of you guys have already seen this, some of you guys haven't. The first thing that always, just start from the top and work your way down. So the first thing it says is select the face to draw on. And that doesn't really matter. I'm going to select this front face right here. And I call this the front face because I'm following the view cube, right? So I will select that. Then it asks for your image. So I'm going to click on this little picture here. And you will see I have the image that I just showed you. Here's the 152 banner. But we're going to do the picture instead. So double click on that. And you will see that shows up on the screen down here. Now, another thing that I should point out right now is that you can, let me just click on the front here so we can zoom in a little bit. You can choose the opacity of the image. So how sharp or how like opacity should be. I normally like mine about 50%. Now I'm going to say, okay, you can scale in here. So you get some handles. You can pull up and down here. You can pull over here. The square will actually let you move it around, or you can scale it on this corner here. I would actually just place it right now. Okay, so now it's just sitting somewhere. Then I will go over to the left, turn my origin on, because I still want my part to be tied into the origin. And you will see that the origin comes down here. It's a little out of the way. But here's a neat trick. If I open up you'll see I've got a canvas folder now because I have that image. If I go in here, if I right click, I get a couple of menus or functions you should be aware of. The first one is edit canvas. That was the one we were just in. But the second one is calibrate. Okay, so I'm going to select calibrate. Now, it's important to say, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, that this image, it's just an image. So it's pixelated. There's nothing I can pick. It's literally just like a picture. So this calibrate canvas is not going to be 100% correct, but it's actually pretty neat for me to work with. So I'm going to move my cursor down to the top of this. You can see we have a 1 inch. So this is going to be inches. You can see 1 inch thickness or whatever you want to call it, this rail. So I'm going to left click once, and I'm going to left click down on the bottom down here, try to be somewhat straight down from that original point before, and I get a dimension up here. Now this is when I realize that my template is in metric, but I actually am going to do this in inches. Isn't that typical? Well, if you didn't know, you can type 1 and then spacebar, and then if you type in IN, it will automatically convert this to inches. So when I hit enter now, this thing will scale up this image to be 1 inch over where I just clicked that calibration tool. So I'm going to hit enter, and you kind of see how it came right at you there. So 2 things. I did that by right clicking and hit calibrate. That was how I did that. Now the other thing I just realized is I wanted to do this in inches, not in metric. I normally try to do this in metric, but just for the ease of it, this is going to be a inches series. If you ever want to change your standard, you can just go right up here on click up here, and you can click on this little icon here, and we can change this over to inches, and this whole drawing will now be in inches. Just a little trick like that. Now I still have not placed this part where the origin is, so I'm going to right click on the image again, and I'm going to hit edit canvas. That's going to bring us back to the menu you saw in the beginning. And now I'm just going to take this canvas and I'm going to bring it over somewhere where I think it looks pretty centered to that inner circle there. Okay? So this is the steps that I'm hit OK. This is the steps that I would know that instead of sitting fighting with a drawing on the table and looking up and down, this is actually a little bit easier. And I will do one later on where there's different views, like a standard 2D drawing. Okay, so we got this. Now, the reason I like to bring this drawing in is I can now use all these different dimensions as an easy reference. So let's start out with the center hole here we're talking about. So 0.205 is the diameter of that. So I'm going to go up and open a new sketch, and I'm going to select that face here, C for circle, and I'm going to snap it into the origin, and then I can draw that out there and type in, because we get the diameter right there on the cursor, 0.205. Okay, and that gives me my first indication about how close I am. And I'm a little off, but that should work okay. All right, now let's start talking about laziness when it comes to drawing things up like this. For any of you guys who know me, I like to be lazy when it comes to this cat and cam. This was something that I did not pay much attention to in my previous life, and I think I probably should have, and that is symmetry. And what I mean by that is we have kind of 4 identical legs on this 80-20, and you know what? There's no reason to sit there and fight with all of those. Let's just draw up this upper right one and then use some of the functions inside of Fusion like patterning and so forth. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create 3 helping lines for that. So I'm going to go up here and select the line tool. I'm going to snap into the origin, and I'm just going to draw a line up and make sure it snaps vertical, and I'm just going to double click, left mouse double click to end that line. See, now it ended that line. If I don't double click, then the line will continue. So if I do the horizontal one, I'm going to left click, and I go out here. Instead of double click, if I just click 1 left click, you can see this kind of like ready to draw the next line. Then I could either hit escape, or I could go down and hit that little check mark. But a neat trick is to just double click. Now, when I come to this line here, I'm going to draw a line that's going to be going in an angle here at 45. You can see that right now in my measuring box, the blue box, I have the length activated, and I have a box on the other side of it that actually is the angle. If you want to switch over to the angle, hit the tab key on your keyboard, TAB. That will switch it over to the other one. I can type 45 degrees, hit enter, and I now have that line. So let me just hide the canvas over here on the light bulb. So what we have is a line here. We have a circle. We have a line here, a line here, and a line here. Now, if you come from other CAD systems, you would normally turn this into construction geometry because it's not really needed. You can do that in Fusion. You don't have to. I used to do it all the time, and now I don't bother anymore. But you could go over here and click construction, and I could turn this line into a construction line here. If I hit this one here, it doesn't show up. Construction. Oh, I don't know why I'm not displaying it right now. Haha! Hang on. I love when okay, I don't know why I displayed. Well, don't worry about it anyways. You don't need it. Okay, so we got the vertical line here. We got the line here. It looks like this line here. I think this might be a reference to the angle line. I'm not sure. Oh, okay, let's start sketching out here. So let me show you a couple of tricks with this. So I'm gonna go up and click, and we're just gonna do this right one right here. So let me click the line tool. I'm gonna make sure that it snaps into that vertical line we created. I'm gonna left click once. I'm gonna move out. Now here's a trick. So I'm still in the line tool. You can see that I have this line here. Did you know that if you move the cursor back over to that endpoint and you hold down the left mouse button and you start dragging, you actually get a tangent arc. But it never goes out of the line tool afterwards. This is something you might want to practice a little bit, but check this out. So I'm still in the line tool. I move up to about where that radius start. I left click once. So now see here how the line tool is still there. I'm going to move back to the point. Hold down the left mouse button, and now I'm actually getting a tangent arc drawn out here. Just get it kind of somewhere close. Drove another line over. Go back again to the original point. Hold down your left mouse button, and I'm actually getting the arc. So I hope you can see that. Go back over the point. Hold down left mouse button, and now you're getting the arc. So this is a quick way to, especially with a part like this where there's all these arcs. Hold down left mouse button, drag around, and you get an arc. Move a line up, hold down left mouse button, and you get a tangent arc. Go down to this point here, left click, go back over, hold down, get a tangent arc, and then I'm going to close it off right down here. Now when I say close it off, you might be like, what do you mean by closing off? Well, if I'm hiding this picture again, you will see how we have a change of color inside this part and outside this part. That means that it's kind of like an enclosed like this light pink or whatever it is. That means that it's enclosed because we kind of started here and we ended down here. I hope that this was somewhat visual. Okay, so now we can agree on that I kind of drew up somewhat fairly easily this outer shape here. Now when you've done that, the next thing you want to do, and I'm just trying to get it somewhat close right now, right? I'll take care of all the other dimensions and all that good stuff later on as we're going into it. Now, my rule of thumb when I'm trying to sketch something up like this is to first try to apply the constraints. That's all these over here, and you can also see that we got a bunch on the screen before I start doing in dimensions. All these symbols you see, if you're fairly new to Fusion, look at all the different symbols over here. So that will show you what they all are. So this one here, that is actually a perpendicular relationship, what means this line is perpendicular to this line. Then we have one of the more important ones. That's a tangent one. So that means that there's a tangency between the line and the arc. You will see here we have a parallel one, and you will actually see this parallel relationship here. When I click on that, it also shows, it highlights this one, meaning that this line and this line are parallel. Then we got another tangent, we got another parallel. If I click on that, we can see that these two lines here are parallel because they get highlighted. So you can see that here. The other one you will see is this one, and that means that it is horizontal, vertical, versus this one, what means horizontal. So you can always look over here to find out what these dimple symbols are. Now here is my most important rule. The first constraint you should always go in and add to here is the tangent one. The tangent one you see down here. So the tangent one on the arcs. And why that is if you don't get all the tangencies on there, that's when your model will kind of like fold upon itself. Let me go up here so I can see I don't have a tangency up on this corner here. If I hold down my left mouse button and start dragging this corner, you see how it can literally like go in any weird direction. And this is not even that bad. See now how this thing, if I place a dimension, this whole thing can become really weird really quickly. Then we do a Control Z to undo that. Same thing, I can see I'm missing one down here. You can see here how you place a dimension and suddenly things are like blowing up on you. Control Z to undo. So this tangency normally ties that down. So I'm going to go over here and select tangency. I'm going to select this arc and this line here. And I'm going to go up and select this arc and this line. Normally you have a tangency on each beginning and end of each circle. So you're kind of like moving around and see if we got all of them, and we're missing one down here. So I'm kind of like just moving around saying, all right, this arc has this one, this arc had this one in here, and this arc has this one, this arc here has this one and this one, and then it looks like we need one down here also. There we go. That will at least prevent kind of like this this sketch to blow up. All right, with that, I know I need some more constraints, but I'm going to show you a couple of different tips as we're going along here. Let me turn the image back on, and now we could start to add some dimensions to this. And I don't think that there's any specific, I don't think there's any rules for how you go about this, but maybe I like to kind of going clockwise around something like this. So if we start out, and some of these dimensions are actually going to repeat. So here we have a 0.256 between the tangency between these two. So if I hit D for dimension, I'm just going to use this line instead. Now if I just place a dimension to this arc, you will actually see that it's center. You see that? It's center to the arc. Let me hit escape to get out of that again. The trick is D for dimension, D for dimension, select this line, then right click and select pick arc tangent, and now it will be tangent to that. So we're going to do that a couple times. So this here, now I'm going to type in 0.256 divided by 2 because I'm only doing half of this, right? So now we got that dimensions there. Let's continue moving around counterclockwise. So here we get a 0.87 between this line and this line. Now notice something, it might be hard to see, but notice something next to my cursor. It is actually showing up as an angle. It's maybe hard to see, but it says here 176.6 degrees. That is an indication that we are missing a constraint to make this parallel. This line here is, the matter of fact, in an angle. So what we could do was we could say we want to create a parallel relationship between this line and this line. And now if I hit D for dimension and I click here, you will now see that we get something that looks a little bit more what we're looking for, 0.087. And this is another reason why I like to use the drawing in here, is that if I sketch in here to the drawing, everything should be fairly close to everything. All right. Next one here is this 0.5 0.584. We're going to kind of do the same thing we did before. We're going to click on the horizontal line here. I'm going to right click and select pick tangent so I can select on the tangency of that arc there. I'm going to type in 0.584 divided by 2 because I'm only drawing up half of it, right? So now that dimension is there. We can zoom out a little bit again. We already did that through hole. That is the first thing we took care of. Then we have a 1/2 inch from the center here out. So that would be from this to this line here. I might just draw that out here. Make that 0.5. Hit enter. Next, if we're moving around here, we have a 0.23. If you're looking at this here, for the distance from this area up to the top. So we can go in here and click here and go up and click on this area here, place that. So that's a little high. Oh, look at this, I got the wrong one, not to the outside, it's to the inside. Escape. See, this is one of the reasons you could go ahead and say D from here to here. And what was it again? 0.23. Got that one placed there. That's good. Now the next one here is actually from this line, this one over here, the 356, to this line. And that is going to be 0.356 divided by 2. Like that there. And as soon as I did that, notice how this whole section here now is black. That has now been fully defined, where this section over here is still blue. Okay, so now when I'm looking at this, I can start saying, all right, since this is fully defined, that means that some of these dimensions probably also plays very well with the other side here. So what I could actually do, here's a little trick. I could utilize the same dimensions that I've done over here over on this end, right? So I could go over here and say the one we just placed, 325, I'm going to click on this line, and notice what happened here. If I place this is a degree, this is an angle. That gives me an indication that something is not right. That was what I just brought up before. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to say, you know what? This line here probably, I don't know if this line is actually vertical. It probably is not. So let me go ahead and create a vertical relationship to that one. Let's go ahead and hit D for dimension from here to here. And now you will see we get a dimension. Now what you could do is, instead of typing in 0.23 to make this the same, you could, with this blue, go up and click on this one, and you will see that it changes to D8. What is this dimension? Now if I hit enter, you get a symbol that is called FX 0.23. And all that means is that this dimension controls this dimension. What means if I change this to 0.2, that dimension will update also. So this can be a good way when you model things up. Let me just hide the cameras for a second. This can be a good way when you're modeling things up. I change this to 0.23. I hit enter. This one will update too. This is a good way to kind of assuring that when you update, you only have to update one dimension, and others will update if you know that they're going to stay in kind of the same row. That could be, if we continued with this 128, if I do this dimension here, again, right click, tangency, select this tangency here, I know this dimension is going to follow this dimension. I can click on that, it changes to D3, and I hit enter. Now these two dimensions are controlling this one and this one. So I hope that this somewhat makes sense in a way to control this. Same thing with a 1/2 inch. We can go over here and click this edge here. That's also going to be 1/2 inch. You could go over again and click on this one over here. You see that it becomes D6. and that's just, it's just another way to kind of trying to control these type of dimensions. Okay, I hope this is useful. Now I'm not sure I'm missing something. Did I ever do we never did the 323. I'm not sure if I need that one to get it fully defined. I don't think I do. I think I'm missing one other dimension. So if you ever, you can always grab a corner here and you can start moving. I think everything is blue right now because I haven't fully defined the radiuses. So let me just undo there, and let's put some dimensions on these radiuses. Now these radiuses are actually not defined on our drawing, but I'm gonna make a decision that since this is a full radius, and I know that thickness, because that's shown right here, is 0.087, that's the width there. This is a full radius. I'm going to determine the other ones are the same thing. So I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I'm going to click here, and it's going to place a dimension out here. Now again, if I wanted to make that be 0.087, like the same as the width, I could just click on that, and that radius will be tied into that. I'm going to make these here. I'm going to make this one, click on this radius here. I'm also going to make that one 87, and I'm going to click this one. I'm going to make that one 87. Oh, see, I am missing a dimension, it looks like right here. And then the two inner ones, I'm going to continue with these. I'm going to make these half of that. So I'm actually going to click here, place this one, select the 87, but then type in right in the dialog box, divided by 2, like that. And I can select this one, divided by 2. Now, this here will control that. Now, as I did all of this, I noticed that I am missing something. I am missing this dimension here. It looks like I'm missing that over on this side. So D, select this to here. I'm going to have that the same as this one. And now it looks like I finally got a, that was the trailing dimension. Now it looks like I got a complete black sketch, which tells me it's fully defined. If you wonder why we have some arcs here, this is just the dimension leaders for the radius. So if you move that down there, that will show up there. One last thing I will do to the sketch is I would probably, and this is just maybe a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it OCD or whatever you want to call it, but you could always go in here and just kind of cleaning these dimensions up a little bit, especially if somebody else were going to work with this at a later point. And maybe it'd be nice for them that things looks a little bit more cleaned up here. So this is kind of how I would use the sketch tool, and I hope that this was useful for you guys to kind of see how I would draw this up and get to this result, and very close to if you're following here, fairly close to what we had kind of on the drawing. It looks like it's a little bit off here with my radiuses, maybe, I'm not quite sure. Now what I would do then, this would be my final sketch. Now you have a couple of options. You could either go in now and you could use a circular pattern in the sketch dialog box and circular pattern this around. So if I go in and click here, you got to select your objects. Let me just highlight everything. So now everything is selected. And then you got to select a center point. See, there's 48 selected entities. Center point is going to be right there in the center of this one. I think that maybe... Oh, maybe I can't do the whole thing. So like all this plus these here. Select the center point. There we go. And I could make 4 of these, and I could do this and hit OK. And you will now have a one created here that contains all the different dimensions, and all these here are just copies. That's one way you could do this. Now this is actually not too bad, but this, somebody could consider this being a little overwhelming, especially if you have something really complicated. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to do Control Z to get back to this. Another thing you could do was you could actually extrude it from here. So if I go into the extrude command and I could select these two halves here, right? I'll just move the image here, and we could now draw out that section. See that? Hit OK. So now we have that section. We could do the same thing, kind of what we just did in the sketch environment. We could go down to the patterning function under Create instead of Sketch. Go into a circular pattern. In this case, I wouldn't select faces. I would select this body, this here. And then we could do the same thing. Select an axis instead of a center point. Do 4 of them. Hit Enter, and we would get this here. Now, the only thing, if we did it this way, was that we would actually end up with 4 bodies together, the way I did it here. Now, you could, of course, always use one of my favorite commands. Go into Modify, go into Combine, and you could now click on all 4 pieces and have the join selected, and now they are all one body and good to go. But I think my point here is that if you go back into your sketch, right click at its sketch, that you have everything you want in here drawn in one, and then you send it around like that. So I think this is an interesting way to do this, and I actually think that, you know, the circular pattern inside of the sketch environment, that's probably just as good as what I ended up doing here, where I used the pattern within a feature. So that, hey, that is totally up to you. All right. So that was all that we had planned for today. I hope this was useful. A little bit of kind of basic sketching, right? And getting in there. But it is funny because I think I have a tendency to kind of forget about the sketching environment, and that is important, because that is every sketch has or every 3D model have a sketch in it. So it should definitely be something we chit chat about. As always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch these, for watching the recording. Thank you so much for doing that. If you are in the live stream, I really appreciate you taking all the time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up if you like this. Be honest, if you don't, thumbs down. That is okay. And with that was this Tuesday, May 1st. I hope your weather is just as good as it is here in upstate New York. Hope to see you tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. Have an awesome day. Thank you so much.